Hong Kong media tycoon Jimmy Lai, found guilty in a landmark national security trial, faces a possible life sentence. Former Hong Kong media tycoon Jimmy Lai has been found guilty on two national security charges and lesser sedition charge in a landmark 2-year trial widely viewed as the measure of the city's shrinking freedoms under Beijing's rule. Self-made billionaire Lai, 78, is one of the highest-profile critics of Beijing, charged under the sweeping security law imposed on the semi-autonomous city in 2020 following months of huge and sometimes violent pro-democracy protest. He founded Apple Daily, a fiercely pro-democracy tabloid newspaper known for its blistering broadside against the Chinese Communist Party until it forced closure in 2021. Lai had pleaded not guilty to all charges and now faces possible life in prison. Monday's verdict marks the end of the tumultuous legal saga that had drawn condemnation from supporters and former foreign leaders around the world, including US President Donald Trump, who had once vowed to get him out. The imposition of the national security law has transformed Hong Kong, with the authorities jailing dozens of political opponents, forcing civil society groups and outspoken media outlets to disband, and transforming the once freewheeling city into the one ruled by patriot only. Hong Kong and China's leaders say it has restored stability following the 2019 protest. Lai is the British citizen and the UK government has previously called for his release. At a news conference in London on Monday, Lai's son Sebastian said he was heartbroken about his father's condition and called on the UK government to do more to secure his freedom. Now it's time to put action behind the words and make my father's release a precondition to close a relationship with China, Lai said. Because how can you expect a fruitful relationship if you cannot even put the 70-year-old man who's in such ill health on a plane and send him back home here in the UK, where he belongs? UK Foreign Secretary Yet Cooper on Monday condemned the Lai's verdict as politically motivated, saying Beijing's national security law had been imposed to silence China's critics. She later told the British lawmakers that the Foreign Office had summoned the Chinese ambassador to underline the UK's position in the strongest terms. Mastermind of conspiracies. In delivering their verdict, judges said there was no doubt that Lai had harbored his resentment and hatred of the PRC, People's Republic of China, for many of his other years. They pointed to Lai's lobbying of US politicians during Trump's first term, much of it before the security law was enacted, as evidence of sedition and colluding with foreign forces, including his meetings with then Vice President Mike Pence, then State Secretary Mike Pompeo, and attempt to meet Trump himself. They also pointed to his WhatsApp message with other pro-democracy activists and Apple Daily leaders and the New York Times opinion piece he had written in May 2020, in which he suggested ways to punish China for its repression of Hong Kong, such as revoking students' visas for the children of government officials. He's arguing U.S. officials to take actions against China in the name of helping the Hong Kong public. Hong Kong public would be analogous to the situation where an American national asked for help from Russia to bring down the U.S. government under the guise of helping the state of California, the judges said in their ruling. We are satisfied that Lai was the mastermind of the conspiracies laid out in all three charges, they concluded. They added that the evidence showed Lai's only intent was to seek the downfall of the Chinese Communist Party. The judges said they would announce the date of his sentencing at a later point. Collusion is punishable by life imprisonment under the security law. The judges had earlier warned everyone inside to remain absolute silent as their verdict was read out. Lai appeared calm throughout, greeting his wife and son at the start with a wave. He did not respond when the verdict came down, but took off his glasses and wiped his face before he was led out of the courtroom. Throughout his trial, prosecutors accused Lai of using his Apple Daily newspaper to call for sanctions against Hong Kong and China during the 2019 protest and after the national security law was introduced. He was arrested under the law in late 2020 and has spent more than 1,800 days in the maximum security prison, much of it in solitary confinement. In 2022, he was sentenced to 5 years and 9 months in prison on unrelated charges of fraud. Lai's supporters, many of whom had stood in line overnight to secure and sit inside the courtroom, expressed dismay but not surprised at the verdict, with many saying they no longer held faith in Hong Kong's judicial system. I've got no anticipation that Jimmy Lai will be released. One woman told CNN describing the city's transformation was too sad. Another supporter said he, too, held no hope for Lai's release and described the feeling of to Beijing's crackdown on the city. But he said we were still here. You cannot really arrest us all. Both supporters asked not to be named. From poor laborer to pro-democracy tycoon, Lai was born in mainland China and arrived in British-ruled Hong Kong at 12 years old, working his way up from factory laborer to clothing tycoon. He then pivoted to media and founded Apple Daily in 1995, 2 years before Hong Kong was handed over to China. The outspoken publisher and his newspaper were at the forefront of the city's pro-democracy movement. A vocal supporter of Trump, Lai traveled to Washington at the height of the 2019 protest, meeting with Pence and other U.S. politicians to discuss the situation. At the time, massive demonstrations sparked by the controversial piece of registration were drawing hundreds of thousands onto the streets, many of whom feared that Beijing could encroach on the city's autonomy and the rare freedoms of speech, press, and assembly. Mr. President, you're the only one who can save us, Lai said in an interview with CNN in 2020, weeks before he was arrested, addressing Trump. If you save us, you can stop China's aggressions. You can also save the world. Taking the stand in his own defense during the trial, Lai said he had never spoken with Trump. The U.S. president said Monday that he had spoken with Chinese leader Xi Jinping about the case and asked him to consider Lai's release. I feel so badly, Trump told reporters in the Oval Office. He's not well. He's an older man and he's not well. So I did put that request out. We will see what happens. Trump had raised the Lai's case when he met Xi Jinping in South Korea in October. An administration official told CNN. CNN is seeking clarity on whether the leaders spoke out after the verdict or if the president were referring to the previous discussion in October. Hong Kong, a former British colony that returned to Chinese rule in 1997, has the separated judicial system to that of mainland China. Both the Chinese embassy in Washington and Hong Kong government have warned against external forces interfering with internal affairs and the judicial process. Following Lai's conviction, China's foreign ministry said the central government firmly supports Hong Kong in safeguarding national security and punishing crimes endangering national security in accordance with the law. In a separate statement on Friday, responding to the U.S. Congressional Committee report on China's human rights record, which included criticism of the Lai's imprisonment and treatment, the Hong Kong government accused the U.S. officials of trying to interfere with the judicial proceedings in Hong Kong by means of political power in order to procure the defendant evasion of the criminal justice process. Critics fear the national security law has brought Beijing's authoritarian and opaque judicial norms to Hong Kong, with all national security trials so far heard by the panel of the specially selected judges, not juries, a departure from the city's common law tradition. Health concerns. The final stretch of the trial was marked by the health concerns for Lai. His lawyers told the court that Lai had been experiencing palpitations and episode of lightheadedness. His son Sebastian said at the time he was deeply concerned about his father's deteriorating health, including his old age and diabetes. In an opinion piece in the Washington Post last Tuesday, his daughter Chloe Lai wrote that solitary confinement is taking its toll on his body and claimed the family had little knowledge what medical care he was receiving, as no outside physicians were allowed to examine her father. In its statement on Friday, the Hong Kong government said Lai had received adequate and comprehensive medical service while in custody, and the prison had arranged daily medical checkups for Lai. There have been no complaints at all regarding the medical services he was receiving, it said. It added that he had been placed in solitary confinement at his own request. CNN's Samla Chupakar contributed to this report.